After the turmoil of the past couple of years, plus Russians' aggression in Ukraine, and towards anyone who questions their agenda right now, food prices are soaring, and big businesses and agriculture are benefiting from the crisis. It's not like big business to cash is on a crisis, right? Stay with us, as today we're discussing how the rising global food prices means big agriculture is having a field day. Stay tuned. First up, what exactly is behind the rising food prices? Well, as we know, 2020 brought with it one of the most turbulent years in recent memory with the onset of the global pandemic, which had catastrophic effects on the global food industry, and consumers are now facing the biggest food price increase since the 1980s. Thanks to the pandemic, production lines have been hit hard by workers having to quarantine. As a result of this, companies have had to draft in workers on short notice in many cases, have had to offer higher wages to entice people to come to work in the midst of a pandemic. Obviously, the companies are not going to take this hit lying down and are just passing the price increases on to their customers. As well as this, and especially during the start of the pandemic, people are stockpiling goods, which means empty shelves, and people are willing to pay more, which only serves to encourage big business and agriculture to raise their prices. With the close of restaurants, people who maybe wouldn't usually were forced to cook at home, which added to the food shortage. Also, the recent crisis in Ukraine is adding to an already unstable industry. Russia and Ukraine are both key exporters of numerous foods, including maize, vegetable oils, and cereals. Prices are raw agricultural commodities like corn, wheat, rice, and soybeans have risen since the start of the pandemic, and the situation in Ukraine will not help reverse these prices one bit. What do you make of the rising food prices, and how is it where you live? So what's the situation on the ground? Stay tuned to find out. People around the world are racing to make up for lost time. As global economies reopen, there is even higher demand than before for Chinese goods, Brazilian soybean, Colombian coffee, and tons of other essential products people have had a limited supply of, or even none of recently. Due to the dominance China has over the global economy and the sheer amount of goods they produce, priority is being given to the country and, of course, the containers that carry the goods from China to the USA and the rest of the world. This means that South American coffee, for example, is suffering. When exporters from South American countries like Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador, who are known for their coffee exports, do get a hold of a container to transport their goods north, it's obviously at a much higher premium, which has a knock-on effect price-wise on the consumer. And it's not just coffee. Global food imports are expected to reach almost 1.9 trillion this year, up from 1.3 trillion just 3 years ago pre-pandemic. Raw materials have shot up in price due to poor harvests and transport log jams. And the boss of Unilever, the Dutch company which makes everything from food, condiments, vitamins, and lots of other things, said an increase in raw material prices means his firm's costs have skyrocketed at their fastest speeds for a decade. All of these factors have combined for the perfect storm, to the detriment of the end user, but signaling healthy profits for the big agricultural firms. Is it all down to the pandemic? Well, pretty much. Traditionally, there are 4 big agricultural firms, known as the ABCDs: Archer Daniels Midland, Bunge, Cargill, and Lewis Dreyfus, who before the pandemic were struggling for around a decade. Before the 2010s, they profited massively from globalization, population increases, and more money per household. But the 2010s brought decreased profits for the big boys, with increased crop yields keeping global prices low, and smartphone technology meaning local farmers could track real-time data and global prices at the touch of a button, which was a win for the little guy as it minimized the middlemen's dominance of the market. All this meant the ABCD's sales plummeted by more than a combined $100 billion from 2013 to 2016. But as with any big conglomerate, it's pretty difficult to feel sorry for them, right? And they soon recovered. As the COVID pandemic picked up, it brought with it global lockdowns and slashed incomes, which meant people were eating at home far more, and traditional meals consisting of meat gave way to vegetables as people looked for cheaper options. Now, as the world is opening up again, cows are being added to herds globally, and China is rebuilding its pig herds. Obviously now, more grain is needed for the larger herds, which is creating a global shortage, which in turn means, yes, you guessed it, the end consumer, you, have to foot the bill. China tripled their corn imports in 2021 to 30 million tons, up from from 11 million in 2020, which should give you some idea of the scale of production. So, what is the future of big agriculture post-pandemic? Stay with us to find out. Well, as in most sectors, growth is all down to certain trends, such as population growth, income, and urbanization. These things all have powerful effects on agriculture, and they're genuinely slow-moving and, dare we say, predictable. Although the past 2 years have shown us how an event such as a global pandemic can throw predictability out the window, but generally, big agriculture should be able to see trends coming and be better equipped to address them. It's not all trends, however. There are plenty of disrupting factors like catastrophic weather events, government policies, Russia's foreign policy on their neighbors Ukraine, for example, and technological breakthroughs, which can all affect a big company's food production as they can take place with little to no warning. In the end, no one knows what will happen in the future, but we can make general predictions which basically all end with big agriculture winning. What are your thoughts on big agriculture? Let us know below. So how does big agriculture affect the environment? Let's see. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that mass agriculture probably uses its fair share of fertilizer, which isn't great for the environment. Granted, more modern ranches and farms have made concerted efforts to move towards green technology during each phase of food production, but a lot of raw materials, maize, soybean, etc., still come from developing countries, whose focus is definitely not on sustainability. These practices generate significant greenhouse gases, whilst also undermining ecosystem services. Countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, LAC, are responsible for a huge majority of farming, and their current production models are seen by most as unsustainable going forward. But there's no magic formula for overnight change. The problem comes at a government level and would mean mass investment of ecological services, incentives for the local farmers to switch to more sustainable practices, and climate-smart technology being introduced. Of course, a lot of these countries just do not possess the funding necessary to combat unsustainable environmental practices. But there is hope, a circular economy approach, which would aim to take advantage of better land management, energy and water consumption, waste management, and pollution prevention by improving use of technology, reusing water. Use of bioenergy and biofertilizers would seek to enable more sustainable farming methods. But this would again need specialists to come in and teach newer farming methods in order to reach these goals. It is difficult to convince people who are struggling to make a living that they should sacrifice their crop yield in the short term for the benefit of the planet. And finally, fertilizer concerns are being raised thanks to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. As we know, Russia has recently invaded Ukraine to the disdain of, well, the entire world. But this also having a knock-on effect on farming practices around the world, not least the fertilizer market. The past 2 years have been testing for everybody, and the fertilizer industry is no different. Russian aggression is affecting the entire planet at the moment, and the farming industry will soon be hit hard. As Russia controls a huge slice of ammonia production, it is thought the country accounts for almost a quarter of the world's ammonia exports, as well as 21% of potash exports and 14% of urea. We know Putin likes to throw his toys out of the pram when things don't go his way, so we can only assume the sanctions which are being felt by the Russian economy at the moment will end with a retaliation of some sort, probably with Putin trying to control export trade. Some European countries are already feeling the squeeze after Russian exports of gas and oil have started to dry up, but surely this is a small price to pay for freedom. What do you guys think of the current situation in Ukraine, and how is it affecting agriculture worldwide? And do you have any potential solutions short of full-scale war? Let us know your thoughts below. As always, thanks for stopping by today, and remember to like and share our video. Also, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, what are you waiting for? Bye, guys.